Well, welcome along, guys. Let's talk former manager Graeme Souness. Let's talk the AGM and the tough questions that need to be asked of John Bennett and James Bisgrove about the financial situation, the squad, and the direction this club is currently heading in. Let's also talk a little bit about Niels Coppen, and we're also going to talk as well about the game upcoming on Wednesday night, where Rangers travel to Tynecastle to take on Hearts in a must-win league game, as if we're going to keep obviously pace with that lot from across our city. Welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation, guys. I'm Aaron David, your host. This channel, guys, we're doing so well at the moment, over 3,800 subs. Thank you for your phenomenal support, but we want to keep growing. We want 4K by the 31st of December. Well, I do. And I'd love, this channel is one of the biggest things in my life, guys. And that might seem a bit sad, but it is one of the biggest things in my life. I love talking Rangers. I love talking on this channel. I love doing the live podcasts. I love having the guests on. It's all about doing this channel. It's about bringing you, the fan, the latest content. And like I've always said, it's run by a fan for you, the fans. And it's obviously free. That's all the content, is free. We're not a Patreon channel. We don't hide behind a paywall. Members videos, we do have members videos if you do want to join the channel for 99p, but we do then obviously release those videos to the whole, obviously, of all fans later on. It's just the members get to see them first, but it's only a couple of videos anyway. So, look, guys, let's talk first of all about former manager Graeme Souness before we get on to the topic of the AGM, which takes place this morning. Well, Graeme Souness was on Talk Sport with Simon Jordan and Jim White, and it appears that he tried a little bit of backtracking when it came to his comments over the manager. Now, it was heavily rumoured at the time that Graeme wanted Frank Lampard to be the manager of Rangers. Also, there's a bit of further talk about Graeme Souness getting a job at Rangers. I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. Well, first of all, let's talk about what he had to say as regards his whole issue over Frank Lampard. And it seems there was a bit of backtracking went on this interview that he gave on Talk Sport. And it seems that he changed his mind a little bit, which has been reported on a number of media sources this morning. And it appears that, there is also strong doubts now as to whether Graeme Souness will be offered any future role with the club due to some perhaps disagreement over the management situation. It appears that whole job offer towards Souness is very much dead in the water. Rumours have it that it's around the fact that what the club see him and what he sees as a role are very different at this moment in time. Also, the fact that he is, as we know, a very strong-willed individual who has his opinions and appears unwilling at times to obviously back down from those, and something I think that does not sit well with the club at this moment in time. Now, we know that the story was that when the management hunt was on after Michael Beale was sacked, Graeme Souness was apparently, allegedly, according to what he said, and also according to the media, very much flying the Frank Lampard flag. It's difficult to say. It's a lot of F's, guys. A lot of F's. Frank Lampard flag. Blah, blah. That's a lot of alliteration, that is. He did praise Clement, but apparently he was flying the Frank Lampard flag. There we go. Got it right. Now, he apparently on Talk Sport yesterday cut a completely different tune to what he had said originally. When he was asked about the fact that he flew the flag for Frank, he said, "That's not entirely true. No, I didn't say I was advocating for him. I think it was a narrow thing. The only advantage Frank had over the manager who's got the job was he may understand the west of Scotland a wee bit more," which you have to kind of doubt, considering that Frank never played in Scotland and most of his career was spent in London. Yet, if you go back in time, if we rein back, if we jump in the red, white, and blue time machine and head back to October the 26th, this is what Graeme Souness said. This is a direct quote from Graeme. He said, "There were two outstanding candidates, Frank and Philippe. The final say wasn't with me. For me, Frank had the edge because of this. Frank, I think, has still got a great deal to offer. Taking the Chelsea job when he did was always going to be very, very difficult. The Everton job is a basket case, and have they improved since Frank left? Not a bit," which I'd kind of question. So I wouldn't be too critical of Frank. The thing that encouraged me about Frank is that he wanted to do it. He doesn't need the money. He wants to be a successful manager, and he fancied the Rangers job, which goes against completely what Graeme said today. Now, it appears that these comments that the club perhaps are not reacting very well to these comments, and the fact that he couldn't even bring himself to mention Philippe Clement's name as well kind of drops a little bit of a hint as to who he actually favoured, and it was in fact Frank Lampard. Now, we're not 100% confident that the board have, since Clement got the job, even approached Souness to offer him a job or ask for his opinion. It does seem that there is a growing belief within Rangers that that any thoughts and any sort of knowledge that Graeme Souness had towards the game has gone a little bit south since he last worked in the game, and that perhaps his opinions are no longer relevant. So it does appear that any opportunity he had to get a job with our club seems to have departed now, and that it's very much a case that we won't see Graeme Souness working with Rangers again. Now, I'd love to get what your thoughts are on this. I think this will be an issue that will divide the fan base. I think there are a lot of fans that think, look, he needs to work with the club. He's a great man. He brought this club back. He turned this club round. He led that Rangers revolution with Walter Smith. The great book that Martin Ramsey wrote, but obviously about that. He details it. But, at the end of the day, there's other fans that think that, his opinions on football, his methodology is very much out of date with what modern football is, and the fact that he hasn't worked in football management for a good number of years there now, and the jobs that he has had since Rangers, he has not been very successful in those jobs. So, look, there is a very much a division in the fan base between those who would support the role of Souness, who would want Souness to have a big say in the club, and there's others that think that his opinions are no longer relevant and are a bit of anachronism in this day and age. Like I said, I would love to know what you have to think on this. But look, one of the big focuses, obviously, of today is the AGM. Before I do that, I just want to share something with you. I found this photo. I mean, I've shown you before, but this was me back in 87, 88. Look, there we go. Wearing the old McEwen's lager top. There we go. Look at that. I was about 7 or 8 at the time. Caught the bug early, guys. Haven't changed since. Been Rangers till I die since then. Carrying me club in my hand to sort out those Celtic fans that I came across whilst I was walking around whatever castle that is in the background. Anyway, let's talk all things. A bit of a side there. Sorry about that. Let's talk a little bit about the AGM. Now, it is very much the case that these two guys here will face, hopefully, a lot of important questions today. And I'm not talking about, are there enough pies at the ground? Are the pies the right temperature? Are the pies the right flavour? Is the coffee warm enough? Etc. etc. They are not important questions. This club is at a crossroads. This club is in a position where severe questions need to be asked as to regards what is going on at this club. There is a real, there is a real uncertainty over financial things, over profit margins, over the squad, over the competitiveness of this squad, over the inconsistent messages coming out of the club. When you go back in time and you look at some of the comments that have been made by these two, James Bisgrove and John Bennett have both commented. In September 2022, John Bennett said that this was the best squad he'd seen since he'd been at the club. And that season, obviously, we won absolutely nothing and had to get rid of a large chunk of that squad. In summer 2023, we allowed Michael Beale free rein. We're going to talk a bit about that in a moment. And spent money on players that we know are very much substandard. And James Bisgrove said after that, in his opinion, we had a squad that was capable of competing in the Champions League, something we now know to be completely false. And yes, look, I know that hindsight is an absolutely wonderful thing. And it's great to sit here with hindsight and say, look, both of you, you are wrong. But it's not great, actually. That's the wrong sentiment, actually. I do apologize. That's not right. It's not great to say that, because obviously we want the club to be successful. Of course we do. It's hindsight that they were both wrong, and hindsight that we now know the truth. But look, did they know at the time? Of course they didn't. And obviously they have to be positive about the squad, positive about the manager, positive about the future of the club. They cannot be negative. They're not going to throw the manager or the players under the bus. John Bennett is not going to say this is the worst squad I've seen. But I think, there is a real sense for me personally, and I think for the fan base, that this club has really failed to move forward since that 55th league title, since that triumph that Steven Gerrard led us to during that unbeaten season. A season when, As I've said on previous videos, we put our foot on Celtic's throat and stamped on their head repeatedly and left them in a position where they were comatose and out of it completely. Yet we took our foot off their head, we took our foot off their throat, and we allowed them to resurface, we allowed them to rebuild, and we allowed them to get better. And at the same time, we did nothing. We sat and we fiddled whilst Rome burned. You know, I know, and I've heard the saying from a number of fans, Rome wasn't built in a day. But you know what, guys? Rome was burnt in a day. And I think in this case, we were burnt down within a season. You know, there are a lot of issues, I think, that really do need to be addressed today in this AGM, and I'm looking forward to seeing the outcome of the AGM. Obviously, it's going to be a very busy day for Rangers with the AGM and also the press conference ahead of the Hearts game tomorrow. More of that later. But look, I really hope that, you know, that the shareholders and the financiers behind the club steer well clear of those trivial issues and focus on the big issues, and really hold this board to account, hold this board to justify their position, to justify what happened in the summer, to explain themselves and show that there is a clear future direction for our club. You know, for me, this club is massive. It is, you know, it is one of the biggest clubs in the world. It is one of the biggest clubs, you know, that matter to so many people. And, you know, the board really do need to realize that. The board do really need to realize that this club is so important to so many people, and they are just custodians of our club. It is not their club. It is, in fact, our club. Look, I think, you know, you've got to kind of look at the present squad and how we were able to get into this position, how we became humiliated in that Champions League, how I think as well over the last few seasons we've really failed to capitalize on a position that we were given after that 55 season. You know, there is financial concerns as well around the club, and you know that there was a net loss of £4.1 million in a year that we, you know, reached the Champions League, that we sold Calvin Bassey for nearly £20 million in a year that we sold Joe Aribo for nearly £12 million. You know, where has that money gone? How was that money used? Was it all used on New Edmiston House and developments around the grounds? What was that money spent on? And how have we got into a position where this loss, this net loss, has been made? Yes, the operating revenue is up, and yes, there was a operating profit, but for the Rangers group, there was a net loss. You know, the net profit was actually down on last year. The profit was fairly pathetic at 252,000, down 5.65 million. Now, I know a lot of that may have gone in the money that was, well, I think we can all say now was entirely wasted by that Cockney chancer, Michael Beale. You know, that profit is roughly the same as what Hearts made. You know, the numbers don't make for great reading either when you actually delve into the accounts. You look at the fact that 16 million of that is loans that the club have taken, and 13 million of that 16 million is loans from investors. Now, I don't think for a minute that the investors into the club, in terms of, I think, probably the Park family and maybe even John Bennett as well, desperately want that money back in any rush as friends of the club. But, you know, the fact that we are relying on loans of 13 million to survive and to continue is fairly dire, and does show some real bad financial management from this board and from the club going forward. You know, the club hasn't made a net profit since 2012, and it is now 5 years since former chairman Dave King said at the AGM in 2018 that the club will be self-sufficient in 2 years. You know, what is the board's strategy to change this? How can we move forward? How can we make a profit? You know, how can we turn this club into a club that is self-sufficient and not relying on loans from investors and not relying on loans to keep on going? You know, that lot from across the city are laughing it up and loving it, you know, with the amount of money they are currently making from Champions League football, the successful player trading model they have up and running, and obviously the money that is behind their club. It is a key question that does need to be asked of James Bisgrove and John Bennett. What is the plan to make this club financially viable? You know, is the sole aim of them is to get this player trading model that they want Niels Coppen to open up? You know, is that the situation that we are solely depending on that? Or is it the fact that we are looking, obviously, to harness the income revenue streams from the player trading model, from Edmiston House, from concerts, from use of the stadium, etc., to move this club forward? I mean, the issue we have, looking obviously at the at the spending that went on over the summer, you look at what was spent over this summer by Michael Beale. We spent 16.2 million euros on players. We had 13.35 million income from departures from the club, and we made a net loss of 2.85 million on our transfer business. So not a massive amount of money was actually spent, in terms of a lot of money was actually recovered, which does beg the question, where on earth has all the money from the Champions League, the Europa League, the Calvin Bassey, Joe Aribo, Nathan Patterson, etc. gone? Where has it disappeared off to? You look at the current squad, as it is, the squad is a little bloated. It's squad size 30. When Michael Beale talked about getting that squad down to somewhere between 23 and 25, it is a little oversized. I think that we are carrying an awful lot of passengers. The dependency on foreign players as well. 73% of our squad are foreign players. The fact that we are perhaps not utilizing our youth talent in the best way, that we are not bringing through players like Alex Lowry, Bailey Rice, Cole McKinnon, and actually Lewis May, who obviously was allowed to leave, and actually using these players to take this club forward. So, look, that is another question that does really need to be asked. What is the vision in terms of transfer policy? What is the vision in terms of developing income revenue stream from that? And what is the vision and the confidence of the board that it will be right? It's all very well and good appointing Niels Koppen and saying that he has an excellent track record at PSV Eindhoven. But, as I was listening to Rangers Rabble tonight whilst I was out walking the dog, it's clear that what has he got to actually kickstart that revenue at this moment in time? Who is going to pay money for the players we currently have on our books? The only players that realistically are saleable assets. You're looking at Bailey Rice, you're looking at Ross McCausland, you're looking at Jack Butland, all players who in the short term we wouldn't want to lose. That is not a situation that we want to be in. This is something that does need to be addressed. And as I said on the video today, when I talked about the man with the Midas touch, which was about Niels Koppen, the video that I released yesterday, the fact that he's in his in-tray will be sorting out this absolute mess that Michael Beale has left us in. I would have said last summer that we were two transfer windows away from catching up and passing that lot from across the city. We are now perhaps 3 to 4 transfer windows back, due to the absolutely awful job that Michael Beale did last summer and the amount of money he wasted on players who are, on the whole, absolutely substandard. They're going to face questions about January as well. What is the plan for January? In terms of allowing Philippe Clement and Niels Koppen to strengthen the squad, how much money is there for that? And, the likelihood is that we will have to move players on before signing players. That squad is bloated at 30. The wage bill is very high. I think the current value of the squad is estimated at 104.55 million. As for the wage bill, I'm not quite sure, but I know our wage bill is higher than PSV Eindhoven's, who absolutely mullered us in the Champions League. We've also got to look at the fact that we are spending a massive amount of money on wages for players, yet not getting what I would term would be a fair return for those wages. It is a situation that does need to be addressed. In terms of actually looking at, are those wages justified? Are players on bloated wages that could be moved on? The likes of Cyril Dessers, Sam Lammers are signed on longer term deals for lots of money. Is that something that can be redeemed somehow? It does need to be looked at, and it does need to be addressed. I think as well, both Bennett and Bisgrove need to face some severe questions about the summer transfer business that was done by Michael Beale. The situation there was the fact that who signed off on those deals. who allowed Michael Beale to spend the money that he did, in terms of the fact that when we looked at, what was looked at in terms of allowing those players to come to our club. So, was any analysis carried out on the likes of Cyril Dessers and Sam Lammers and Jose Cifuentes that, what analysis took place that allowed us to think that these guys were going to be successful for us and we're going to allow this club to move forward? We are very much in the same position we were last season when we are trying to hunt Celtic down. Yes, we're in a position to obviously win the Viaplay League Cup. Obviously still in the Scottish Cup. European competition-wise, we are worse off than last year. We weren't in the we didn't even get to the group stages of the Champions League, which we did last season. So look, at the end of the day, yes, I know it was a disaster, but we didn't make it this season. So we're actually in a worse position. What has enabled that, and who signed off on this business? To what degree was Michael Beale given free rein? I think these are all questions that Bisgrove and Bennett need to face. And there really needs to be clear answers, not waffle, not general answers. It needs to be very clear what the future vision for our club is and how this club moves forward now. Yes, I think a lot will come down to the work that this man will do in terms of getting the player trading model doing. But as I said, what has he got to work with at this moment in time? There is literally nothing. We do need to perhaps start looking at widening our scouting network. And by that, I also mean by looking at Scotland as well. Not having a snobbery towards Scottish players, looking at some young Scottish players that we can bring in and develop. Connor Barron from Aberdeen, Lennon Miller from Motherwell, those types of players, if we brought in for, say, 2-3 million and then sold on for 9, 10, 11 million later on down the line, that is all part of that player trading model. And I know Niels Coppen has a very good record from PSV, but at this moment in time, he has very little raw materials to work with at the club. So, look, that's the AGM. That's what's going to go on this morning. Like I said, I'm fascinated to find out what is actually discussed at this AGM, what is talked about and what the outcome of it is. I fear it'll be a lot of waffle. I fear it will be a lot of general answers. I fear it will not be a lot of being actually properly held to account, as these events don't often lead to that. So, these are all serious questions that really do need to be asked of this club. Where are we going? How are we going to generate enough income? How can we justify the fact that, we are not self-sufficient 2 years on from 2018 when Dave King said we were going to be? What has stopped us getting there? What were the recruitment plans? How have they failed so badly? And where is all the money gone? That is got to be a question. All that money that was raised from those player sales, what the hell was that spent on? 20 odd million for Bassi, 12 million for Rebo, 32 million. That's 32 million there. Where's that gone? The money from Patterson, the money from Sakala, the money from Cholak, it all mounts up, guys. It mounts up to somewhere probably about 50, 60, 70 million pounds. Where on earth has it gone? What has it been spent on? It does need to be asked. Now, Wednesday night, obviously, we go into the game against Hearts at Tynecastle, and it is going to be a tough game. Hearts will no doubt raise their game, as all teams do when they come across Rangers. And obviously, we'll preview the game more fully on Wednesday morning on our Matchday News slot. We've also got the podcast tonight, where we'll look ahead to the game and give you a bit more of a preview of said game. But it isn't going to be easy. It will be tough. We are not in the best of form at this moment in time. Yes, the second half against St Mirren on Sunday was better than the first half. Hearts are not in the best of form either. Apparently, the 1-0 win they had on Saturday, they were very lucky to get that goal. But like I said, they will want to get back at us after we beat them in the semi-final. They'll want to get back at us for those last two late goals, including that penalty at Ibrox, and we beat them 2-1 after Lawrence Shankland put them ahead. It will not be an easy game. It will be a physical game, and I think it will be an exciting game. I think Hearts will come and play us. They will come and attack us. And Tynecastle, we know, is an atmosphere in itself. We've only got 500 odd tickets, which is a damn disgrace. They will sell out. They will be on top of us, and it will be an intense game. We will bring you the live stream here on the channel, so please come and join us for that on Wednesday night. But look, it isn't going to be easy. And I know that kind of goes against what I've been saying in terms of, as Rangers, we should be going places and saying, we're Rangers, we're going to stick 9 past you or 6 past you or 5 past you, whatever. But this moment in time, is this squad in a position to actually do that? Is this squad where we need it to be? There is a lot of dross left in this squad that Clement is trying to work with. The Lessers, that's about right. Lessers and I said he said Dammers there. He pretty much is Lammers and Dessers. Sorry, who are absolute garbage. We've got players there that are very much passengers in this squad. And also players that when the pressure comes on, they wilt and they hide. We've got to get them over this. This is something Philippe Clement, I'm sure, will be working on and confident that he can turn around. But, he is very much working with what he's been left. And this has been the position, I think, for the last couple of years. We have been kind of involved in a Groundhog Day-esque thing where managers have kind of been left with what they had from previous regimes and then not really done the best job in rebuilding, and it's kind of all fallen apart. So we've got to hope that Philippe Clement by January can do that, but he has to work with what he's got, obviously, tomorrow night, against Hearts, and get that result. It is going to be tough. It will be tricky. And we'll obviously preview it in a bit more depth in the podcast tonight and also on match day morning news. Thank you for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation, guys. As always, please smash the sub, help the channel to keep it on growing. But on the way out, if you can do just two things for me. Number one, smash the like. It helps the channel to grow. And number two, please always remember, we are the people.